Nurse Reid stood under the white blaze of the operating lights while Dr. Malcolm Voss called her useless in front of everyone. "Touch that tray again, and I'll have you removed," he snapped, his mask pulled tight over a face red with pride. Reid did not answer. She only looked at the wounded SEAL on the table, then at the cracked black helmet lying in an evidence bag beside his chart. Someone had taped an old radio tag to it. 3 faded words were still readable. "Silent Harbor Reid." The surgeon laughed when she warned him. The chart was missing a page. The base commander told her to remember her place. Reid lowered her eyes and swallowed every insult, because the truth in that helmet could destroy the life she had spent years trying to bury. Before we go deeper, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. If stories about hidden service, forgotten sacrifice, and the moment quiet people are finally seen mean something to you, subscribe and stay with Nurse Reid until the last door opens. The storm of voices began in the emergency corridor outside Fort Bellamy Regional Hospital, where the ER doors kept shuttering open, and medics moved with the clipped urgency of people who knew the night had already turned bad. Nurse Reid stood beside Trauma Bay 3 with a pair of gloves in one hand and her old gray field jacket folded over the back of a chair. The jacket looked out of place among the polished floors and glass walls. Its elbows were worn thin. One cuff had been repaired with dark thread. A small section of the inner lining had been sewn over so many times that it puckered like an old scar. A younger nurse, Lena Hart, noticed it before anyone else did. "You still wear that thing," she whispered. "When the air conditioning tries to kill me," Reid said quietly. Lena smiled, but the smile died when the ambulance radio cracked overhead. "Inbound military casualty. Male, late 30s, unstable vitals. Field team reports loss of consciousness after extraction drill. Escort from Naval Special Warfare. ETA 2 minutes." The corridor changed. Security moved closer to the ambulance entrance. A hospital administrator hurried out of an office. 2 surgical residents appeared at the double doors like they had been summoned by a bell. Then Colonel Adrian Hale strode in, wearing a pressed uniform and an expression that made people stand straighter before they knew why. Reid saw him and lowered her eyes to the chart station. Colonel Hale did not see her at first. His attention was on Dr. Malcolm Voss, the trauma surgeon, already pulling on a gown as he walked. Voss had the kind of confidence that filled the hallway before his body arrived. He was tall, silver-haired, celebrated on donor plaques, and famous for reminding nurses they were not doctors. "Who's leading the intake?" Hale demanded. "I am," Voss said. "Good. I don't want hesitation. That man belongs to a unit the public will never hear about. No civilian confusion. No freelancing." Reid felt the words strike the air before they struck her. Civilian confusion. Freelance confusion. Freelancing. The ambulance doors burst open. 2 medics rushed the patient in under a tangle of clipped commands. The man on the stretcher was large, pale beneath the harsh lights, his face marked by exhaustion and field dusts. His tactical vest had been cut away. Beside him rode a sealed evidence bag containing a black helmet, a folded rescue map, and a red-tagged radio still blinking weakly. "Lieutenant Jason Cole," one medic said. "SEAL team training extraction turned real when a cliff road collapsed near the lower reservoir. He pulled 2 men out before he dropped." Reid stepped in without raising her voice. "Bay 3, Lena, monitor, left side. Keep the helmet and radio with the chart." Dr. Voss turned sharply. "I didn't assign you to this. I'm the charge nurse tonight. You are the charge nurse for the ER floor, not for a naval special warfare casualty." Reid held his stare for 1 second, then looked back to the patient. "He's still a patient." Colonel Hale's eyes moved to her name badge. "Reid." Something almost changed in his face, but pride crossed over it too quickly. "You will follow Dr. Voss's instructions exactly," Hale said. "No independent decisions, no personal theories, no heroics. Reid nodded once, understood. The medics transferred Cole onto the bay bed. He stirred just enough to grip the air. His fingers brushed Reid's wrist, his eyes open to a thin slit, unfocused, searching. "Lantern," he whispered. No one else seemed to hear it. Reid froze. Voss was already calling for imaging, labs, surgical prep, and a rapid evaluation. Hale stood over the evidence bag like it contained state secrets. "Helmet stays with command," Hale said. Reid looked at the red tag on the radio. The tag was faded, but she could read the hand-printed code beneath a smear of dirt. "Gray Lantern." Her throat tightened. "Colonel," she said carefully, "that radio tag matters. It might connect to an old field protocol." Voss let out a short laugh. A field protocol? From you?" Lena looked up. Reid kept her voice flat. The patient whispered, "Lantern. The radio tag says Gray Lantern. There might be information missing from the intake report." Voss stepped close enough that the whole bay heard him. "Nurse Reid, this is a trauma intake, not a bedtime mystery. Your job is to assist, not invent classified meaning from a dirty sticker." The medics went silent. Lena's eyes lowered. Hale's jaw tightened with approval. Reid absorbed the insult the way a wall absorbs rain. "Yes, doctor." But she did not move away from the radio. A second later, Cole seized Reid's sleeve again. This time, his fingers caught the edge of her old jacket, which Lena had placed near the bay when the rush began. The jacket slipped from the chair and fell open on the floor. From inside the torn lining, something dark and stitched showed for half a second. A patch, not a decoration, not a hospital badge, something older, tree mular, nearly hidden under thread and cloth. Hale saw it. His eyes narrowed. Reid bent fast and folded the jacket shut. "What is that?" Hale asked. "Nothing relevant to the patient. You brought unauthorized military insignia into this facility." Voss glanced down with contempt. "Of course she did. Some people collect stories because they don't have accomplishments." Lena flinched as if he had slapped the air. Reid did not defend herself. Her attention remained on Cole, whose lips were moving again. "Wrong road," he breathed. "Map, wrong road." Reid looked at the folded rescue map in the evidence bag. A corner had come loose. There were two route lines drawn in grease pencil. One was blue, one was black. Her heart began to pound with an old rhythm she had prayed never to feel again. "Voss," she said, "before you take him upstairs, you need to ask command whether he came through switchback 9 or the service tunnel." Voss laughed harder this time. "You are asking me to delay surgery for road trivia." "No, I'm asking because if he was exposed near the service tunnel, the field report might be incomplete." Hale stepped between them. "Enough. That route is not your concern." Reid looked at him then, really looked at him, and for one dangerous second, the quiet nurse vanished. In her place was a woman who had once given orders in rooms without windows. "Colonel," she said, "if that tag says Gray Lantern, and if this man whispered wrong road, someone sent him through a dead corridor." The words landed too heavy for a nurse's guess. Hale's face hardened. "Remove her from the case," Lena gasped softly. Voss did not hesitate. Gladly, Reid stepped back, but Cole's hand tightened around her sleeve with startling force, his eyes open, glassy but desperate. The corridor outside had filled with witnesses, residents, security, a medic still holding empty equipment. Everyone heard Dr. Voss say, "Lieutenant, she is nobody you need." Cole's eyes fixed on Reid's face. "No," he breathed. "She knows." Then his hand slipped away, and the old jacket fell open again at Reid's feet, showing the edge of the hidden patch and one faded embroidered word, "Harbor." They took Lieutenant Cole towards surgery with Dr. Voss at the head of the team and Colonel Hale walking beside the stretcher as if guarding a prisoner instead of protecting a patient. Reid followed 3 steps behind until a security officer put out an arm. Colonel's order, ma'am. I'm still charged nurse. Note on this case. Lena stood beside the supply cart with her mouth slightly open, watching Ray decide whether to fight. The hallway waited for drama. Some faces showed sympathy, but most showed the familiar curiosity of people about to watch someone be publicly lowered. Reid bent, picked up her jacket, and folded it over her arm. Her fingers pressed against the hidden patch through the cloth. It felt like touching a buried bone. She could have spoken then. She could have said the old code, the unit, the operation name. She could have told them that Ray Lantern was not road trivia. It was a medical alert, a rescue classification, and a warning attached to men whose official charts had been cleaned for security. She could have told Hale that the map was wrong because she had drawn the original. But the last time she had told the truth, a family had disappeared into protective custody. 3 graves had no names, and Nurse Reid had signed a document agreeing to become no one. So she lowered her voice. Lena, keep an eye on the radio tag. Lena swallowed. They won't let me near it. They will if the monitor alarms. And if Cole says, Lantern again, write down the time. What does lantern mean? Reid looked toward the surgery doors. It means someone survived something they were not supposed to survive. Before Lena could ask more, Dr. Voss's voice snapped across the corridor. If Nurse Reid has finished whispering conspiracy theories, perhaps she can return to bedpans and visitor complaints. A few people laughed because power had laughed first. Reid turned back toward the nurse's station. Her face did not change, but Lena saw her hand tighten around the jacket until her knuckles widened. Inside operating room 2, the tone shifted from corridor contempt to bright, controlled pressure. Reid should not have been there, but 10 minutes after the elevator doors closed, the OR requested an experienced circulating nurse because one assigned nurse had gone pale and another was stuck with a mass casualty drill on the south wing. Voss objected immediately. Anyone but her. The OR supervisor checked the board. There is no one else with her trauma certification available. She is not to speak unless spoken to. Reid entered in sterile blue, hair covered, eyes calm. The old jacket stayed outside in a locker, but its weight seemed to follow her. Voss did not look up. You are here because staffing is poor, not because your judgment has value. Yes, doctor, do not mention roads, lanterns, patches, maps, ghosts, or whatever else you pretend gives you authority. Yes, doctor. Colonel Bale observed from behind the glass, arms crossed. He had no medical role in the room, but his presence pressed down on everyone. The procedure began. It was tense, precise, and deliberately undescribed beyond the necessary movements of professionals doing hard work. Instruments were requested. Medications were confirmed. Reid moved quietly, anticipating needs before they were spoken. Twice Voss reached for something and found it already placed in the correct position. He did not thank her. Lucky guess, he muttered the first time. The second time he said, at least old habits can be trained. Cole remained unconscious, but his body reacted when a resident read from the intake chart. Unknown prior surgical history. No declared medication complications. No field restrictions marked. Reid's eyes went to the sealed packet clipped to the chart. The packet had been stamped incomplete. Pause, she said. The room stopped for half a heartbeat. Voss slowly turned his head. What did you say? Reid kept her hands still. The field restrictions are missing. The intake says no restrictions marked. It says no declared restrictions. That is not the same. Are you correcting the chart? I'm saying it's incomplete. Voss's voice sharpened. Based on what? Your feelings. Based on the gray lantern tag. Colonel Hale pushed through the OR door so hard, the hinges sighed. Nurse Reid? The title became a warning. Reid did not raise her voice. Ray Lantern. Casualties were often separated from standard field histories. If his restriction page is missing, you need command medical verification before proceeding with that medication sequence. Voss stared at her as if she had spit on his reputation. You will not tell me how to operate. I'm telling you the chart might be unsafe. I have been a surgeon for 23 years. And I have read incomplete charts before. A resident's eyes widened. Lena, now stationed near the ore supply door, looked down quickly to high shock. Voss stepped closer, every word cold. You are a nurse in a civilian hospital wearing thrift store war souvenirs under your coat. Do not mistake proximity to brave men for bravery. The insult hung there. Reid blinked once. Yes, doctor. That was not agreement. That was dismissal. Voss ordered the resident to continue. Then Cole moved, not dramatically, just enough for one hand to tremble against the restraint. His head turned a fraction toward Rye's voice. Reid, he murmured. No one breathed. Voss leaned close. Lieutenant Cole, can you hear me? Cole's lips barely parted. Not blue. Reid looked at the map packet. The blue route. The wrong road. Voss snapped. He is disoriented. Reid said. He is confirming the route error. Hale's face darkened. You are done. He moved toward her, but the anesthesia Lee spoke from the head of the bed. Doctor. His response pattern just changed after the medication prep. The room shifted, not panic, awareness. Reid took one careful step toward the chart. Check the hidden addendum. There is no addendum, Voss said. There is if the helmet came with the radio. Hale barked. That evidence is outside medical scope. Reid looked at him. Then why did command send it with the patient? No one answered. The question cut too close. Lena moved before she seemed to realize she had decided. The helmet bag is still in the corridor lockbox. Voss pointed at her. You stay where you are, Reid said. Lena, don't touch it unless ordered. Voss laughed again. But this time it sounded thinner. Listen to yourself, giving commands in my oar. Ray lowered her eyes. Then order someone to open the bag. Hale's silence became its own confession. Finally, the anesthesia Lee said, for patient safety, I need that addendum verified. Hale stared through the glass at the lockbox beyond the ore doors. His jaw worked once. Open it. Lena hurried out and returned with the sealed evidence bag. Hale broke the chain of custody himself, furious at being forced. The helmet came out first, scarred but intact, then the radio, then in the folded map. At the bottom was a waterproof sleeve, flattened and nearly hidden against black foam. The resident lifted it out. Inside was a single yellow card, field medical restriction. Ray, lantern classification. The resident read the line and stopped. Voss snatched it from him. The medication sequence changed. Nobody apologized, but the room no longer laughed. Reid stood under the light, silent, while Voss continued the surgery as if the correction had been his idea. Colonel Hale stepped back behind the glass, but his eyes never left her. Lena watched him, watching Reid, and for the first time that night she understood the commander was not merely annoyed. He was afraid of something he could not name. The procedure stretched into its second hour. The danger rose and lowered in waves, spoken in numbers and clipped instructions rather than fear. Reid worked with exact calm. When the surgical resident asked for the wrong size instrument, Reid had the correct one ready. When a monitor tone changed, her eyes moved before anyone else. When Cole's hand twitched again, she placed her palm near his fingers without interfering, giving him something steady to find if consciousness dragged him upward. Voss noticed. Do not comfort him, he said. It can reduce agitation. He is sedated. He is still human. The room tightened again. Voss' eyes flashed. You think everyone here needs moral instruction from you? No, doctor. You think because you guessed one chart issue, you own this room? No. You think silence makes you dignified. It doesn't. It makes you evasive. Reid looked at him then. Silence keeps some people alive. The words were too personal. Lena saw Hale's head lift behind the glass. Voss scoffed. There it is. Another dramatic line from the woman with a secret patch. The resident kept his eyes on his hands. Voss continued because no one stopped him. What are you hiding, Nurse Reid? A boyfriend's jacket. A souvenir from a veteran charity auction. Did someone once tell you a story at a bar and now you think you serve? Reid said nothing. Answer me. This is not the time. I decide what time it is. Colonel Hale opened the OR door. Doctor, Voss, focus on the patient. It should have ended there, but Voss could not bear being corrected by anyone while Reid stood proven right. You know what I think? He said, voice low enough to sound surgical. I think she has spent years around wounded men, collecting their pain and wearing it like rank. Reid's eyes dropped. That one reached her. Lena saw it. Not a flinch, not tears, just a brief inward collapse, like a door closing behind her face. Cole's fingers moved again. Reid noticed an instinct overrule humiliation. Hi, trying to speak. Voss did not turn. Ignore it. He might be responding to command terms. He is not in command of my aura. No, no, Reid said softly. But he might know who sent him through the wrong route. Hale stepped fully inside. That is an investigation matter. I, Timmy, became medical when the wrong route changed the report. Voss pointed to the door. Das, an, the anesthesia. Reid hesitated. Nurse Hart, you can leave with her if you admire insubordination. Reid looked at Lena and shook her head. Barely. Stay. She moved toward the exit. This time the sound was faint but clear enough to cut through monitors, masks, and rang. Pop, he whispered. Reid stopped. Voss closed his eyes in frustration. He is repeating random words. Cole's hand lifted a fraction from the drape. Fingers trembling toward the door, toward the locker hall beyond it, toward the old jacket no one in the OR could see. Old gray. He breathed. Lena's face went white. Hale said, Lieutenant Cole, identify what you mean. Cole's eyelids fluttered. Harbor. The room became very still. Reid remained with her back half turned, one hand near the door handle. Voss stared at Hale. What is Harbor? Hale did not answer. Reid said, don't ask him that under sedation. Why? Hale demanded. Because if he answers, you will have to report it. Hale's face changed again, more openly this time. Voss saw it. Colonel. Hale ignored him. Nurse Reid, what do you know about Silent Harbor? The name sounded different spoken aloud. It made the room older. It made the fluorescent lights feel like interrogation lamps. Reid turned slowly. I know that it should not be discussed in an operating room. That is not an answer. It is the only one I can give without authorization. Voss let out a bitter laugh. Authorization? From whom? The thrift store that sold you the jacket? The old cruel rhythm returned, and this time several people looked away from him instead of from Reid. Reid took it. Again, she had taken every insult in hallways, in briefings, in silence after memorials, in civilian interviews where her service years were blank because a shield order had eaten them. She had learned that pride was expensive, but patience sometimes bought lives. The anesthesia lid's voice cut in, patient stabilizing with revised protocol. The medical team exhaled in fragments. Voss resumed control, but his anger had lost its shine. The surgery moved toward its final stage. Cole, vital signs steadied. The resident whispered a number that sounded like hope. Lena passed a tray with hands that no longer shook. Reid stayed because no one told her again to leave. The R became efficient, almost quiet. Then the doors opened just enough for a security officer to enter with Reid's jacket in a clear plastic property bag. Colonel, he said, you requested this. Reed's head snapped up. Hale did not look at her. Place it on the side table. You searched my locker, Reid asked. Hale's face was stone. You brought suspicious military material into a secure medical response. That jacket is personal property. That patch is evidence now. Voss found new oxygen in the humiliation. Wonderful. We can finally learn which costume shop made Nurse Reid brave. The security officer set the bag down. Through the plastic, the torn lining had opened wider. The hidden patch showed more clearly now. A dark field, a small lantern stitched in gray thread, and beneath it the words Silent Harbor, Medical Command. Lena whispered, Medical Command, Hale said. Do not read it aloud. But the words were already in the room. Cole heard them. His eyes opened. This time they were not unfocused. They were weak, pained, but aware enough to find Nurse Reid where she stood at the edge of the lights. His lips moved. Reid leaned closer, despite Voss's glare. God, she whispered. Jason, don't. It was the first time she had used his first name. Everyone heard that too. Cole's fingers tightened around the edge of the sheet. They erased you, he breathed. Reid shook her head once. Rest. Voss stared between them. You know this patient? Reid did not answer. Cole forced another breath. She stayed. Hale stepped forward. Lieutenant, identify Nurse Reid's connection to Silent Harbor. Reid's eyes closed briefly. Jason, she whispered, you owe me nothing. Cole looked at the commander, then at the surgeon, then at every face that had listened while she was insulted. His voice was barely more than air, but it carried because the room had fallen completely silent to hear him. Captain Reid, he whispered. Navy Captain Nurse Reid. Mom? No one spoke. The words did not explode. They froze. Doctor. Voss's hands stopped midair. Colonel Hale's mouth parted and closed without sound. The resident stared at Reid, as if the floor beneath her had dropped away and revealed a buried command center. Lena's eyes filled before she seemed to know why. Captain. Not a nickname, not sentiment, not confusion. In the mouth of a seal, spoken with that broken, automatic respect, it became a key turning inside a locked room. Reid lowered her gaze. Lieutenant Cole is under sedation, Cole whispered again. Weaker but certain. She was Raven Medical Command. She carried us out of the Black Route. She gave the order. Hale's face had gone pale. Voss found his voice first, but it was no longer sharp. That is impossible. Reid looked at the monitor. Focus on your patient, doctor. No one challenged her. The surgery continued. But authority had changed shape without anyone touching a badge. Voss still gave clinical instructions, yet his voice had lost the sneer. Hale stepped back as if proximity itself might accuse him. The residents moved faster when Reid spoke. Lena watched her with a kind of stunned tenderness, like she was seeing not a myth but a person who had been forced to survive being forgotten. For the rest of the procedure, Reid said, only what was necessary. Clamp ready. Pressure steady. Chart the medication change. Note the gray lantern. Restriction was found in helmet evidence. Voss obeyed the last instruction before he realized he had done it. When the final count was complete and Cole was prepared for recovery, the aura released a breath that had held for hours. The patient was alive, stable, protected by the one person they had tried to remove. Only then did Hale speak. Nurse Reid, she corrected him quietly. That is the name on my hospital badge. You need to come with me. No, the word stunned him. Reid removed her gloves with controlled care. Lieutenant Cole needs transfer documentation. The route error needs to be flagged. The radio tag needs to be secured. Nurse Hart will witness the chain of custody. Hale's authority returned in a reflex. You are refusing a direct order. Reid turned. From what command, Colonel? The question was calm. It was not loud, but it carried the weight of Cole's whispered rank. Hale looked toward the patch in the plastic bag. Voss swallowed. No one spoke. The recovery hallway felt colder than the OR. Lieutenant Cole was moved behind guarded doors, and the hospital's ordinary night tried to return, but it could not. Every person who had heard the whisper moved differently now. They spoke more softly around Reid. They stepped aside too quickly. Their apologies hovered near their mouths but could not find the courage to become words. Reid hated it. Respect given after proof felt too much like grief given after burial. She stood at the chart station outside recovery, entering notes with steady fingers, while Lena watched from the supply alcove. "You were a captain?" Lena asked at last. Reid continued typing. "I was a nurse." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer that still belongs to me." Lena looked toward the property bag containing the jacket. Why was it hidden? Reid paused. Because the patch had been removed from uniforms before the bodies came home. Because Silent Harbor had never existed on public paper. Because some missions are erased, not because they fail, but because too many powerful people survive by letting the right names disappear. Because Nurse Reid had signed away her rank to keep 3 young operators from being blamed for following her last order through a corridor that should have killed all of them. Instead, she said, because some proof hurt people who are still alive. Before Lena could respond, the administrative conference room doors opened. Colonel Hale stood inside with 2 military legal officers on a secure video line. Dr. Voss was there too, mask gone, face pale with controlled embarrassment. Hale's voice carried, "Reid, now." Lena touched Reid's sleeve. "You shouldn't go alone." Reid looked at her hand, then at the young nurse's worried face. "Then come as witness," Hale almost objected. But the word witness changed the balance. He stepped aside. The conference room had been turned into a temporary command cell. The helmet sat on the table beside the old jacket and the folded map net. Someone had opened a laptop with a secure seal on the screen. A naval insignia spun slowly while the connection authenticated. Voss stood near the wall, no longer filling the room. One of the legal officers on the screen spoke first. "State your name for the record." Reid looked at Hale. He would not meet her eyes. "Mara Elizabeth Reid," she said. "Current occupation, registered nurse, Fort Bellamy Regional Hospital. Former service status." The room tightened. Reid's voice did not change. "Seal." The officer looked down, then back up. "By whose authority?" "Joint order under Silent Harbor Annex. Signed by Rear Admiral Thomas Sloan and countersigned by Special Warfare Medical Command." Voss's eyes flicked toward Hale. Hale's face hardened. "We have no accessible record confirming that." Reid almost smiled, but it was not amusement. That was the point. The officer on the left leaned closer to his camera. "Captain Reid, we need you to confirm whether the helmet and radio tag belong to Lieutenant Jason Cole's extraction team." Voss whispered, "Captain." Nobody corrected him. Reid looked at the helmet. It was Old Navy black, modified for field communications, with a small white scuff near the left rim. She remembered the first time she had seen that mark. A younger Cole laughing after bumping his head on the doorway of an aircraft before pretending he had meant to do it. He had been too young for the weight he carried. They all had. "Yes," she said. "The helmet belongs to Cole. The radio tag is not from tonight." "It was issued during Silent Harbor," Hale said. "That is not possible. That operation was closed years ago." "Closed is not the same as finished." The legal officer's expression tightened. "Captain Reid, were you aware that your name appears on the route overlay recovered tonight?" Reid looked at the map. "Yes, explain." She could feel Voss watching, waiting for a story he could understand. A fraud exposed, a nurse exaggerating, a veteran's widow clinging to someone else's memory. Anything easier than the truth. Reid unfolded the map. The blue route was marked as the approved extraction road. The black route cut through a service tunnel beneath the reservoir. The blue route was clean on satellite, she said. Too clean. No civilian vehicles, no heat signature, no obstruction. That means someone wanted us there. I marked the black route because it had cover and access to a maintenance bay. Hale interrupted. Us? Reid's hand stopped on the map. The officer on the screen answered for her. Captain Reid was attached to a classified naval medical recovery unit. Voss looked as if the words had struck him physically. Reid continued. Cole's team used the black route because I ordered it. They survived because they disobeyed the blue route. Hale pointed at the current map. Tonight, his team was routed blue, by mistake. Reid looked at him. That is what you need to find out. The secure laptop chimed. A new caller joined. The face that appeared was older now, but Reid recognized the eyes before the name label loaded. Rear Admiral Thomas Sloan. Everyone stood except Reid. Sloan looked directly at her through the screen. For a moment, the command room vanished, and the years between them thinned into something painful. Mara, he said. It was not protocol. It was apology. Reid's face did not move. Admiral. Hale straightened so sharply his chair scraped. Voss looked down. Sloan's eyes moved to the jacket on the table. I was told the patch survived. You was sewn into the lining. You were supposed to destroy it. I tried. Badly. Apparently. For one brief second, Reid almost smiled. Then, it disappeared. Sloan turned to Hale. Colonel, everything Nurse Reid said about Grey Lantern, Silent Harbor, and the medical restriction is accurate. Hale's face went rigid. Sir, her record shows no such service. Her public record shows no such service because I signed the order that sealed it. Voss whispered. Why would anyone do that? Sloan heard him. Because Captain Reid took responsibility for a route change that saved 14 lives and exposed a breach inside a command chain we could not publicly admit had been compromised. To protect surviving operators and their families, her name was removed from all accessible files. Reid looked down. Lena covered her mouth. Voss said nothing. Hale seemed to lose color one shade at a time. Sir, I was not briefed. No, Sloan said. You were not, but you were briefed on patient safety, chain of command, and the difference between caution and contempt. The sentence landed harder than shouting. Reid folded the map again. Admiral, Lieutenant Cole needs rest. This can wait. No, Sloan said softly. It waited long enough. Reid's eyes lifted. You protected everyone but yourself, he said. And tonight, that nearly cost a man his life, because no one believed you had the authority to know what you knew. Reid's composure thinned. I did what I signed to do. You signed to keep an operation quiet, not to let fools call you nothing in an operating room. Voss closed his eyes. The word nothing seemed to bring back every insult at once. Useless, nobody, costume, proximity to brave men. Reid absorbed them again, but now the room had to absorb them with her. Sloan's voice became formal. Colonel Hale, secure the helmet, radio, map, and jacket patch. Open an inquiry into the route discrepancy. Voss, you will submit a patient safety report, including Nurse Reid's intervention and the Grey Lantern restriction. Voss nodded once. Nodded once. Yes, sir. For the first time all night, he seemed smaller than his title. Yes, he said. Captain Reid looked away. Nurse Reid is fine. Sloan's face softened. Not tonight. The recovery room smelled of antiseptic, warm blankets, and the fragile quiet that follows a life pulled back from the edge. Lieutenant Jason Coe lay under soft light, no longer surrounded by the frantic movement of surgery. Machine tracked him with gentle rhythm. A guard stood outside the door, But Lena waved Reid in when Cole stirred. "He's asking for you," Lena whispered. Reid stepped inside. Cole's eyes opened slowly. He looked older than the man she remembered, but the young operator was still somewhere in his face, hidden beneath years and duty. "You look terrible," Reid said softly. His mouth curved. "You always were bad at bedside comfort." She pulled a chair beside him. "Rest. You tried to stop me." "I tried to protect the seal? I'm a seal. Seals get wet." "Not funny." "I was a little funny." The small humor broke something in her chest. She looked down at her hands. They were steady. They had stayed steady through every insult, every command, every old name spoken aloud. Now, in the quiet, they began to tremble. Cole saw. "They told us you left," he said. Reid's eyes closed. "They told us you took the blame and disappeared. Some said you cut a deal. Some said you cut a deal. Some said you were angry. I never believed it. You were not supposed to look for me. I didn't." He paused. "Not officially." She shook her head. "Jason, you saved us. I sent you through the black route. You sent us through the only route that wasn't rigged. I lost people. I lost people. So did we." The words were gentle, but they opened the wound she had been guarding for years. Reid looked toward the observation window. Lena stood beyond it, pretending not to watch. Colonel Hale was farther down the hall, speaking into a secure phone. Dr. Voss sat alone near the scrub sink, staring at nothing. Cole's voice pulled her back. "They erased the wrong thing," he said. Reid swallowed. "They erased what they had to. No, they erased the person who made the hard call so everyone else could sleep." She shook her head again, but this time the denial was weaker. Cole breathed carefully, gathering strength. "When I saw the jacket in the bay, I thought I was dreaming. It should have stayed in my locker. It should have been in a museum. I hate museum. Hey, no. You said they make courage look clean for the first time." Reid let out a broken laugh. It almost became a sob, but she held it between her teeth. Cole turned his hand palm up. After a moment, she placed her hand in his. He did not squeeze hard. He did not need to. "Captain," he whispered. "Don't, Mom, Jason." He looked at her with the stubborn loyalty of every young person she had ever tried to shield from the cost of obedience. "You can tell them to stop now." She knew what he meant. Stop hiding. Stop shrinking when lesser men mistook silence for emptiness. Stop letting the patch live in a lining like contraband. Stop accepting punishment for a mercy that had saved lives. "I don't know how," she admitted. Cole's eyes softened. "Start with the jacket." Outside the recovery room, Hale ended his call. His reflection in the glass looked older than when he had arrived. He approached the door, stopped, and waited until Reid stepped out. "Captain Reid," he said. The hallway heard it. Reid's shoulders stiffened. "Colonel, I owe you an apology." She did not rescue him from the discomfort. She simply waited. Hale removed his cap, though hospital corridors did not require it. "I dismissed your warning. I ordered your removal. I allowed Dr. Voss to insult you in my presence. I treated your silence as proof that you had no authority." Reid looked at him. "You treated my badge as proof I had no history." The words were quiet. They struck deep. Hale nodded. "Yes, I did." Lena stood near the station, eyes bright. A resident slowed at the printer. Two medics near the elevator turned to listen. Voss appeared at the far end of the hall. He had heard enough to know he could not avoid the rest. Hale continued, "Your intervention changed the course of care tonight. Lieutenant Cole is alive in part because you insisted on the missing restriction." "In part," Reid said. "The team did their jobs, and you did yours." "My job is nurse." Hale looked toward the old jacket now sealed in fresh evidence plastic. "And before that?" Reid's answer took a long time. Before that, she said, my job was bringing people home. Voss approached slowly. The corridor's attention shifted with him. He seemed to feel every eye as a weight he had earned. Nurse Reid, he began, then stopped. No one corrected him, but the pause corrected him for them. Captain Reid, he said. She did not move. I was wrong. The sentence sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. He forced himself to continue. I confused control with competence. I confused rank visibility with experience. I spoke to you with contempt in a room where you were trying to protect a patient. Reid watched him carefully. Voss's face reddened, but not with anger this time. I documented your intervention in the surgical report fully. Lena folded her arms as if ready to challenge him if he lied. And the insults? Reid asked. Voss looked down. Unprofessional, unjustifiable. That is still clean language for what happened. He absorbed that. Cruel, he said. The hallway became still. Reid nodded once. Yes, I am sorry. For a moment, she looked so tired that Lena wanted to step forward and hold her up. But Reid stood on her own, as she always had. Apology noted, she said. It was not forgiveness, not yet. It was a door left unlocked but not open. The secure inquiry moved fast after Admiral Sloane entered the night. By dawn, Fort Bellamy's administrative wing had become a quiet storm of calls, sealed files, and people discovering that what they could not access still had the power to judge them. The route discrepancy was no longer dismissed as clerical. The blue line on the map had been loaded from an outdated command template. Someone had ignored a buried alert. Whether incompetence or malice, Hale would have to answer for why a SEAL team had been sent down a road marked wrong years before. Reid wanted no part of the politics. She stayed with patience. That angered Sloane when he arrived in person just after sunrise. He came through the ER doors without ceremony, wearing service dress beneath a dark overcoat. People recognized rank before they recognized him. The corridor straightened. Even Voss, who had not slept, stood from the nurse's station as if pulled by a string. Reid was helping Lena adjust a discharge packet for an elderly veteran, who kept insisting he knew when nurses were hiding bad coffee. You must be the Admiral, the veteran said. Sloane smiled. Guilty. The old man pointed at Reid. She's the one in charge here. Sloane looked at her. I know, Reid sighed. Admiral, I'm working. So I see. You came a long way to interrupt a discharge. I came a long way to return stolen property. He lifted a flat archival case. The old jacket lay inside, cleaned only enough to preserve it, not enough to erase its age. The hidden patch had been carefully removed from the lining and placed beside it. Silent Harbor, Medical Command, a gray lantern, a dark sea, a thin red stitch at the bottom that Lena had not noticed before. Sloane set the case on the counter. The ER went quiet. Reid stared at the patch as if it were both a wound and a heartbeat. You had no right, she said, to remove it, to bring it out here. I have every right, Sloane said gently. I signed the order that buried it. I can sign the order that acknowledges it. Her eyes flashed. And what about the people who needed it buried, still protected? Names remain sealed. Families remain protected. Operational details remain sealed. He tapped the patch. But your existence is not an operational detail. That sentence landed harder than all the official words. Voss stood near the medication room, listening with the look of a man being taught shame in a language he had once mocked. Hale entered from the military liaison office, cap under one arm. He saw Sloane, then the patch, and stopped. Sloane addressed him without turning. Colonel, has the preliminary report been amended? Yes, sir. Read the correction. Hale hesitated. Sloane's eyes moved to him. The colonel opened a folder. His voice was controlled, but every word cost him. Correction to initial Incident Summary. Civilian designation of Nurse Reid was incomplete for emergency relevance. Verified SEAL service record identifies Mara Elizabeth Reid, United States Navy, retired, rank captain, formerly attached to Special Warfare Medical Command under Silent Harbor Annex. Her warning regarding Gray Lantern classification was accurate. Her intervention prevented use of an incomplete medical sequence and contributed materially to patient stabilization. Nobody in the corridor moved. The words did what proof does when spoken publicly. They rearranged memory. Every person who had watched Reid be insulted now had to revisit the scene with the truth installed. Every laugh became uglier. Every silence became heavier. Every moment she had stayed calm became not weakness, but discipline. Lena wiped her cheek quickly. Reid looked at Hale. You didn't have to read it in the hallway. Yes, he said. I did. Voss stepped forward then, not far, just enough to be seen. I added my own statement, he said. Reid's expression closed. Doctor, he held out a printed page. You don't have to accept it, but it belongs in the record. She did not take it. Lena did. Voss did not object. He looked at Reid directly. I wrote that I created a hostile environment during an active surgical case. I wrote that my dismissal of your warning was not clinical judgment but arrogance. I wrote that, if the missing card had not been found, the outcome could have been different. The ER was silent, except for distant wheels and a phone ringing unanswered. Reid said, Why? Voss's mouth tightened. Because, before last night, I thought public humiliation was a tool. I thought if I broke someone's confidence, I proved I was in control. And now I saw someone refuse to break because a patient mattered more than pride. Reid looked away first, not because he had won anything, but because the apology had found the part of her that still wanted to believe people could become better after being wrong. Sloan opened the archival case. Mara, no, you haven't heard what I'm asking. You're asking me to wear it. I'm not that person anymore. Sloan's voice softened. I don't think service works that way. Reid touched the counter with one hand, steadying herself. When they sealed my record, they sealed the funerals too. They sealed the letters I couldn't write. They sealed the mothers who asked me where their sons were and the answers I had to swallow. That patch is an honor to me. It's wait. Cole's voice came from behind them. Then, let us carry some. He stood in the recovery hallway doorway in a robe, supported by a courseman, and looking like someone who had ignored at least 3 medical instructions to get there. Lena gasped. Reid turned sharply. Jason Cole, if you take one more step. He stopped instantly. Yes, ma'am. The automatic obedience broke the tension like dawn through cloud. A few people laughed softly, not at Reid this time, but with relief. Cole looked at the patch. We carried your orders for years. We can carry your name too. Reid's eyes filled, and this time she could not hide it quickly enough. Cole continued, voice tired but firm. You told us once that patches are not proof of courage. People are. Fine. Then let the patch prove what people tried to erase. Sloan lifted the old gray jacket. Lena stepped forward. My eye. Reid looked at her. You don't know how to sew military patches. No, Lena said. But I know how to follow your instructions. A faint smile touched Reid's mouth. The patch was not sewn on that minute. Hospitals do not stop for perfect ceremonies. Patients still needed medication. Families still needed updates. Phones still rang, but something had changed in the building's bloodstream. By mid-morning, everyone knew there would be a brief acknowledgement in the main corridor before Lieutenant Cole's secure transfer. Not a press event, not a medal ceremony. Just a correction witnessed by the people who had witnessed the insult. Reid hated the idea. Then she saw Lena sitting in the break room with the jacket across her lap. carefully placing small stitches where the hidden patch had once been buried. Not on the outside where it could be displayed like a trophy, but inside the left breast, over the heart, visible only when Reid chose to open the jacket. "You said proof can hurt people," Lena said without looking up. "So I put it where you decide who sees it." Reid stood in the doorway for a long time. "Good work," she said. Lena smiled through tears. "Yes, Captain." "Don't start." "Yes, Nurse Reid." "That's better." But both of them knew it was not the whole truth anymore. By noon, the main corridor near the ER was filled with a quiet crowd, not a crowd of strangers. The people who had been there, the medics who brought Cole in, the residents who looked away, the security officer who blocked Reid, the anesthesia lid who asked for the addendum, the OR staff, a few administrators who had suddenly discovered interest in accountability. Dr. Voss stood near the back, hands clasped, face bare of performance. Colonel Hale stood beside Admiral Sloan. Cole waited in a transfer chair with a blanket over his lap, pale but stubbornly upright. Reid stood beside him in scrubs, the old gray jacket folded over one arm. Sloan did not make a speech. He seemed to know Reid would walk away if he did. He simply said, "Last night, in this hospital, a nurse gave a warning that was dismissed. The warning was correct. The patient lived. The record will show that Nurse Mara Reid acted with skill, restraint, and courage under pressure." Reid stared at the floor. Sloan continued, "The record will also show that the woman dismissed here as a civilian nurse is retired Navy Captain Mara Reid, formerly of Special Warfare Medical Command, whose SEAL service saved lives that cannot all be named." The corridor held its breath. Hale stepped forward. His voice was steady but humble. "Captain Reid, on behalf of command, I apologize for ordering your removal, dismissing your expertise, and allowing your service to be mocked." Then he saluted. It was not theatrical. It was precise. A public correction from a man who had publicly failed. For 1 second, Reid did not move. Then, slowly, she set the jacket over her shoulders. The old cloth hung differently now. Not newer, not lighter. Just no longer hidden in shame. She returned the salute. No one spoke, not because they were afraid, because some moments are too heavy for noise. Cole looked up at her, eyes bright. "Still hate ceremonies, more than ever. You're doing great. I'm considering sedating you." Noted. Lena laughed quietly behind them. Even Voss lowered his head with something that might have been a smile, though he did not seem to think he deserved one. The transfer team prepared to move Cole. Before they did, he reached into the small pouch attached to his chair and pulled out the red radio tag from the helmet. It had been cleared for release as personal property after documentation. Gray lantern. He held it out. Reid shook her head. "That belongs with your unit." "It does." He pressed it into her palm. "You are part of why we still have one." She closed her fingers around it. The tag was small, faded, almost weightless. It carried years. Voss approached last after the others had begun to disperse. He stopped at a respectful distance. "Captain Reid," she looked at him. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good." He nodded, accepting the cut. "But I expect change," she said. His eyes lifted. "In in your residence, in the way you speak, when you think the person beneath you can't answer back. You'll have it. I won't be watching every room." "No," he said, "but I will." Reid studied him, then gave one small nod. Then Lieutenant Cole did not go through all this for nothing. Cole called from the transfer chair. "I would like credit for some of my suffering." Reid turned. "You ignored bed rest. Your credit is revoked." "Yes, ma'am." The corridor softened with quiet laughter. Not mockery, relief, the kind that comes after truth has finally been allowed to breathe. As Cole was wheeled toward the secure exit, He lifted 2 fingers in a weak salute. Reid returned it, not as a captain to a subordinate, but as one survivor to another. The ambulance doors opened. Sunlight spilled into the ER corridor. For years, Nurse Reid had believed the past was safest when buried. But buried things do not always stay dead. Sometimes they wait in an old jacket lining, under a hidden patch, beside a helmet with a broken radio tag, until the right voice whispers the right rank, and a room full of people remembers how to be silent. Reid went back to work before the hallway finished watching her. There was an elderly patient asking for water, a child crying behind a curtain, a veteran pretending he was not scared of test results. The ordinary needs of ordinary people rose around her, and she answered them one by one. Lena found her later at the medication station, the gray jacket hanging on the chair beside her. "You okay?" Lena asked. Reid looked at the jacket. The inside patch was hidden again, but not buried. Not arrest, just waiting. "No," she said honestly. Then she picked up the next chart. "But I am here." And for Nurse Reid, that had always been the promise. Some heroes do not enter rooms loudly. Some stand under insults, protect the vulnerable, and let the truth arrive only when it must. Nurse Reid never needed applause to know who she was, but the night the seal whispered her rank, everyone else finally knew too. If this story moved you, leave your country below, honor someone quiet in your life, and subscribe for more hidden patch stories where the forgotten are finally seen.